The port of Assab, a once thriving hub for Ethiopian trade, has become a focal point of geopolitical competition in the Horn of Africa. While Ethiopia pushes for rightful access to the Red Sea, Saudi Arabia is making strategic moves to expand its influence in the region. With billions in investments under Vision 2030, the kingdom sees Assab as a critical piece in its Red Sea trade ambitions. Welcome back, everyone. Imagine a time when Ethiopia controlled 70% of its trade through a single port, Port Assab. A gateway to the Red Sea, fueling Ethiopia's economy and connecting it to global markets. But today, this once thriving port stands nearly abandoned. What happened? How did Ethiopia lose Assab, and why does it still matter today? Our story begins in 1869, when an Italian missionary named Giuseppe Sapeto bought Assab on behalf of the Rubattino Shipping Company. At first it seemed like a small, insignificant coastal strip, but Italy had much bigger plans. By 1882, Italy officially took control, making Assab the first Italian colony in Africa. They saw it as a strategic base for trade with Ethiopia, and began developing it into a major port. During this time, Assab became a key free trade zone, directly linked by road to Ethiopia's highlands, including Dessie and Addis Ababa. The Italians hoped Ethiopia would rely on Assab for imports and exports, strengthening their influence in the region. However, Ethiopia remained wary of Italy's intentions. Emperor Menelik II, who defeated the Italians at the Battle of Adiwa in 1896, knew better than to trust colonial powers. As a result, Ethiopia shifted its trade focus to the French-controlled port of Djibouti, reducing Assab's importance over time. Fast forward to 1952. Eritrea was federated with Ethiopia, and Assab officially became Ethiopia's primary gateway to the sea. The port quickly expanded, handling 70% of Ethiopia's total trade. It became so crucial that in 1967, Ethiopia even built its first-ever petroleum refinery in Assab. The establishment of the Assab oil refinery in 1967 marked a pivotal moment in Ethiopia's industrialization efforts, reflecting the country's ambition for self-sufficiency in petroleum production and economic independence. Constructed by Russian engineers, the refinery was more than just an infrastructure project. It was a strategic initiative aimed at modernizing Ethiopia's predominantly agrarian economy. With an initial production capacity of 500,000 metric tons of fuel per year, later upgraded to 800,000 metric tons, it positioned Ethiopia among a select group of African nations investing in local oil refining infrastructure during the mid-20th century. As a symbol of national progress, the refinery sought to alleviate the financial strain of crude oil imports by refining fuel domestically, reducing foreign currency expenditure, and fostering economic self-sustainability. Beyond its immediate function, the refinery played a crucial role in shaping Ethiopia's industrial future. Its operations were expected to catalyze related industrial projects, enhance transportation networks, and strengthen logistics connecting agricultural centers to urban markets. It also contributed to employment generation and the development of a skilled workforce, as thousands of workers acquired essential technical skills, reinforcing the country's industrial capabilities. This alignment with Ethiopia's broader vision of economic expansion laid the foundation for subsequent industrial advancements. However, the refinery's role in the nation's energy landscape was abruptly halted in 1997 following Eritrea's secession, leaving Ethiopia increasingly reliant on imported fuel. In contrast, other African nations have advanced their refining capacities significantly. Nigeria, for instance, operates some of the continent's largest refineries, including the Port Harcourt refinery, with a capacity exceeding 210,000 barrels per day, far surpassing Ethiopia's refining capabilities. Similarly, South Africa's Sapref refinery processes over 180,000 barrels per day, reflecting the scale at which more developed refining nations operate. Countries like Angola and Kenya have also heavily invested in expanding their refineries, with Angola's Luanda facility increasing production from 65,000 to nearly 200,000 barrels per day to meet both domestic and regional demands. The stark contrast between Ethiopia's halted refining ambitions and the continued expansion of other African refineries highlights the challenges Ethiopia faces in achieving long-term energy security. The oil refinery in Assab was shut down in 1997 due to economic factors. The refinery and oil jetties were partially destroyed during the war, leading to its closure. This closure occurred before the Eritrean-Ethiopian War, after which Ethiopia ceased using Assab as its primary port. To clear confusion, the idea behind the establishment of the Assab petroleum refinery was not necessarily based on the presence of oil reserves in the region itself, but rather to create a domestic infrastructure that would allow Ethiopia to refine imported crude oil. The refinery's purpose was to reduce Ethiopia's dependence on foreign oil supplies by processing crude oil into usable products like gasoline, diesel, and other refined petroleum products locally. This was a strategic move to promote economic self-sufficiency and reduce the outflow of foreign currency to purchase refined fuel. The refinery was strategically located in Assab due to its proximity to the Red Sea, making it a key point for oil importation. While there were no significant oil reserves found beneath the Assab area itself, the refinery relied on imported crude oil, which was brought through the port. This setup allowed Ethiopia to refine the oil locally, reducing reliance on international refineries and ensuring a more controlled, stable supply of petroleum products for the country. By the 1980s, Assab was bustling with economic activity, importing goods from all over the world and exporting Ethiopian coffee, livestock, and textiles. The port became Ethiopia's economic lifeline. Later in 1993, Eritrea gained independence and for a while, Ethiopia continued using Assab without issue. But then came the turning point, the 1998 Eritrean-Ethiopian War. This war changed everything. Ethiopia lost access to Assab, cutting off its main trade route. As tensions escalated, the port went from being a bustling trade hub to an almost deserted facility. Since then, Ethiopia has had to rely entirely on Djibouti for its maritime trade, which has significantly increased costs and logistical challenges. But here's the thing. Assab is still incredibly important. It's located just 60 kilometers from the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, one of the most critical maritime choke points in the world. Control over this area means influence over global trade routes. That's why countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE have shown interest in Assab. They see it as a potential alternative to Djibouti and have invested in modernizing its infrastructure. The port of Assab, located on the Red Sea, has become a hotspot for geopolitical maneuvering. Once the lifeline of Ethiopian trade, this port has since fallen into Eritrean control. But now, Saudi Arabia is stepping in, investing heavily under its Vision 2030 initiative. Why is the kingdom so interested in Assab, and what does this mean for Ethiopia? Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 aims to diversify its economy beyond oil, and the Red Sea plays a crucial role in that strategy. By modernizing Assab, the kingdom wants to reduce its reliance on Djibouti and establish new logistical hubs. Saudi Arabia has already invested $13 billion in the Horn of Africa since 2000, and its focus on Assab aligns with its broader economic ambitions. Ethiopia, however, has a different perspective. Before Eritrea's independence in 1993, Assab was Ethiopia's primary port, handling about 90% of its trade. Today, Ethiopia relies almost entirely on Djibouti, paying exorbitant port fees. This has reignited Ethiopia's push for rightful access to the sea. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has emphasized the importance of securing seaport access, stating that Ethiopia, with over 120 million people, cannot remain landlocked indefinitely. While some rhetoric has hinted at military solutions, Ethiopia's best approach remains diplomacy, negotiating fair access to Assab while avoiding conflict. But Ethiopia isn't the only regional player eyeing Assab. The UAE has also been investing in Eritrean ports, while Turkey is expanding its footprint in the Red Sea. This competition complicates Saudi Arabia's efforts, as it must balance investments with maintaining its strategic influence over regional trade routes. If Saudi Arabia succeeds in transforming Assab into a major logistics hub, its annual cargo capacity could increase from 2.8 million tons to over 5 million tons. This would reduce the region's reliance on Djibouti and shift trade dynamics in favor of Saudi-backed initiatives. But will this benefit Ethiopia, or will it create new challenges? Ethiopia's best path forward is to push for diplomatic agreements that secure its access to the port. Saudi Arabia, as a key investor, could play a role in mediating a deal between Ethiopia and Eritrea, ensuring that Assab serves the entire region's economic interests. Saudi Arabia's push into Assab isn't just about trade, it's also about securing influence in the Red Sea. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, one of the world's busiest maritime choke points, is a vital passage for global energy and goods. With Yemen's instability posing security risks, Saudi Arabia's presence in Assab helps protect its Red Sea interests while countering rival powers like the UAE and Turkey. Ethiopia currently pays over $1 billion annually in port fees to Djibouti. If Ethiopia gains access to Assab through a diplomatic agreement, it could significantly cut costs and boost trade efficiency. However, Eritrea has been cautious about granting such access, given historical tensions. The future of Assab remains uncertain. Saudi investments could revitalize the port, but Ethiopia's demand for access cannot be ignored. Will diplomacy prevail, or will economic ambitions fuel new tensions? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The key points here are: Saudi investment in Assab, the kingdom's Vision 2030, and its $13 billion investment in the Horn of Africa. Geopolitical significance: Assab's proximity to Bab el-Mandeb, and its potential role in Red Sea logistics. Ethiopia's standpoint: the historical use of Assab for trade, and Ethiopia's diplomatic push for sea access. Regional competition: Saudi Arabia versus UAE and Turkey in the Horn of Africa. Future implications: can Saudi Arabia mediate a peaceful solution that benefits Ethiopia while maintaining its economic interests? The port of Assab stands at the crossroads of history and modern geopolitics. Ethiopia's rightful demand for sea access, Saudi Arabia's ambitious investments, and Eritrea's role in the equation all shape the future of this crucial region. Will diplomacy pave the way for a peaceful resolution, or will economic and political tensions escalate? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more in-depth analyses on the Horn of Africa.
ስለዚህ በኤርትራ የሚኖረው ሁኔታ ለዘለቄታው የሚመች እየሆነ እስኪሄድ ድረስ ይህን ጥያቄ በእንጥልጥል ብናቆየው ይሻለናል ነው ያለው። ለዘላለሙ በአሰብ ወደብ የመጠቀምን ጉዳይ የዓለም አቀፍ ሕግን ተንተርሰን አናነሳም ያልንበት ምክንያት የለንም። በአሁን ሁኔታ በጉልበት የሰው ሀገር ለመያዝ ሞክረው ሳይሳካላቸው በቀረበት ሁኔታ ይሄም የራሱ ፖለቲካዊና ኢኮኖሚያዊ ተጽዕኖ በስርዓቱ ላይ ባሳደረበት ሁኔታ ለመተንፈስ የሚያስችለው ጊዜና አየር በሚጠይቅበት ሁኔታ ያ ስርዓት ለመተንፈስ የሚረዳው ብር በአሰብ በኩል መላክ አይጠቅመንም የሚል አቋም በመያዝ ነው ይህን ጥያቄ እስካሁን ድረስ ያላነሳ ነው። ወቅቱ ሲደርስ ጠቃሚና አስፈላጊ ነው ብለን የምናይበት ደረጃ ላይ ስንሆን እናነሳዋለን። ስለዚህ በስርዓቱ ውስጥ ወታደራዊ ኢኮኖሚያዊና ፖለቲካዊ ቀውሶች ማቆጥቆጥ በጀመሩበት በአሁኑ ሰዓት ይህንን ብር ኢንጀክት አድርገን ያንን ቀውስ የምናረግበት ምክንያት የለንም ብለን ነው የምናየው።